questions, then he will facilitate the session. Meeting will be locked after 20 minutes from now due to security reasons. So please make sure that if you have any issue, like if you log out or something due to the network issues or something, let us know so that we can let you in again. So with that, I would like to start the session for this evening. So as a health and safety leader, it can be very challenging and frustrating when not everyone sees the relevance of health and safety in, to them, because this is one of the big challenges that we are facing, you know, most of the time, that people, they don't believe in it. They don't like see the connection between what we do as health and safety and themselves. So this is something really critical, and we definitely are going to have a very interesting session that will give us lots of guidance, you know, on how to overcome these kind of challenges. It can be a struggle to get people's attention to make your health and safety message stick. So as I said before, that our profession is very critical, and we keep telling people that you need to make sure that you believe in what you are doing so that you can make that kind of change, you know, that's needed. And we are dealing with issues related to culture. So we would like to build a culture. So building a culture is not an easy thing. So if you do not believe in that, it will be so difficult, you know, for you to do so. And here I would like to quote this quote from Roy Bennett. He's saying that believe in yourself. You are braver than you think, more talented than you know, and capable of more than you imagine. So if you believe in yourself, we know that, you know, we are going to have that kind of superpower, and we will be able to make that change that's needed. So our speaker this evening has encountered the same kind of challenge, and has documented her responses to them in her new book, People Power, Transform Your Business in the Era of Safety and Well-Being. The book has been an Amazon #1 bestseller many times since the launching, and the author has been nominated for the SHP Most Influential Person in Health and Safety for the year 2021 award. Today, she is going to tell us about about her 3-step formula for making health and safety sticks. So please, I would like you to buckle up, be ready, and join us for this very interesting journey, and exciting as well. So please join me to welcome Karen Howitt, who will be presenting for us this evening. So Karen.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for that amazing introduction. I really like the quote you used at the beginning there about believing in yourself. And I'm just going to get my slides now.
Please let me just
okay.
Yes.
So hopefully, can you see some slides there?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to get started. So essentially, as you said, Ahmed, I'm addressing 2 key challenges that we have as health and safety professionals: how to make health and safety relevant to people that may not have the same level of awareness as us, and how do we make it stick? So how do we make those messages change behavior and last a lifetime without us having to be constantly there? So this is why today we're talking about Build, Buzz, Bake. So if you haven't read the book, Build, Buzz, Bake may sound a little bit strange, but bear with me and all will be revealed by the time we get to the end of the presentation today. I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff, and then I'm going to be asking for your questions at the end. So get ready, note your questions down, get ready to ask me. And some of what I'm going to say might seem obvious. And I greatly believe in the simple stuff. And sometimes we just need to remember the obvious stuff. So some might be new, some obvious, hopefully a nice mix of both. So you can see my screen okay, everybody, hopefully. Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Yes, I can see a thumbs up, brilliant. So what I'm going to be talking about today, first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about me and my journey. I had a bit of an unusual route into health and safety. Probably there is no one else in the world that had the same unique route as me, but you can let me know if you did. I'd be absolutely fascinated. And I had a bit of an aha moment, and I got into health and safety by accident. I'm going to talk about the 5 discoveries that I made along the way, which really underpin my thinking and why I wrote the book. I'm going to talk about how to influence in a complex, diverse organization, because I imagine you work with a lot of diversity. I can already see a lot of diversity on my screen, which is absolutely amazing. And I'm sure there are so many variables that you have to deal with that. How do you really deal with that? Then I'm going to give you an overview of the Build, Buzz, Bake formula. Obviously, all the detail is in the book, but I'm going to give you an overview today. And then I'm going to talk about the results that you might expect from this formula, because it's a formula I've used for 10 years in 2 large organizations. And there's going to be a competition. So please remind me that I need to announce the competition at the end, because this could potentially be the most exciting part. Thank you, Venkat. Hopefully it's all exciting, but the competition is definitely the most exciting part there. So what was my aha moment? Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 pictures of me, and I want you to notice the differences. I think as health and safety professionals, we're really tuned into differences. We can spot when things are different. So look at these 2 pictures, and I'm going to tell you where they were taken and why they're different for me. They're both me. I know I was a little bit younger here, slightly different hairstyle, but look at the difference in body language and think about what you notice. So I know I'm smiling in both pictures, but there's a difference between a smile that's real and a smile that's not quite as real. So on the right-hand side, or it's the right-hand side on my screen, the side with where I'm wearing the headphones, that was me when I worked as an interpreter for the United Nations. So I had what I would call a midlife crisis in the middle of my life, funnily enough. And I decided that I'd always loved languages, I'd always loved people, and I would retrain as an interpreter. So I spent a year where I gave up. I had a career in communications. I gave that up, and I trained for a year on how to interpret simultaneously. It's the 2nd most stressful career after, what do you do? Air traffic control. I was trying to think what the word was there. After air traffic control. And in the end, I didn't stay in that career for very long. After training for a long time, I decided to give it up. And the main difference is that I worked in an environment where I felt that people that I worked with were spotting what I did wrong rather than what I did right, and it didn't make me feel very good. And then in contrast, while I was training to be an interpreter and trying to get into the United Nations, because you have to do a test to get in, even after you've got your qualification, you have to do a test, you get 3 goes at it, and I passed 3rd time in New York. So I wasn't going to give up, and I finally did it. And at the same time, I was working for a big oil and gas company on a part-time freelance basis, because a contact of a contact had said to me, we're looking for somebody that can deliver training, speaks a lot of languages, is good with people. And I thought, yes, tick, 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 that's me, I can do that. And I later found out it was in health and safety. So I didn't know anything about health and safety. So this was the picture of me on the left, the picture on the beach. So it looks a bit strange, but that was me working in health and safety, and I'll explain where that was taken. So that was me. That was in Brazil. I don't know if you were guessing where that was. So I spent a lot of years traveling around the world. I went to Qatar as well. So I've been out there, and I've spent a few weeks training people as well. So this was 2 weeks I spent in Brazil, and I was training people in Portuguese to be safety coaches. And it's an environment where I felt I could focus on what people did right, and people noticed in me what I did right, and that really made me feel good. So in the end, I gave up the career on the right with the headphones, and I went full time on the career on the left. So this picture was on the beach because I'd worked so hard. And you know, when you're really passionate about something, you just never stop. You really work hard. I spent 2 weeks working in Brazil, and I worked so hard that you might imagine I was on the beach, but I never got to the beach. And then there was a driver taking me to the airport at the end. And I said, please stop at the beach just so that I can get my photo taken and say I've been to Brazil, because I spent 2 weeks not dressed like that. That was the last day in the office. I was dressed in PPE on 2 different manufacturing sites. So for me, my aha moment was this: people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So everything I've done in health and safety has been about making people feel good and doing things that made me feel good. And I discovered that when you do that, people really engage. And I know this is kind of at odds with what we do in health and safety, because we have to spot what goes wrong. That's part of our job. But when we spot what goes right, people feel better about it. So there is a way to balance the two. And so here's my discovery number 1. This is what makes people feel good. So I want you to think, we're all people on this call. I'm going to give you a little checklist, and just let me know whether you think this might make you feel good. First of all, acknowledging what is important to them. So what's important to people? People like to be called by their name. People like you to remember their name. People like you to talk about their family. People light up. If you were to ask me about my daughter, Mila, I would light up like a Christmas tree, I would say. When you show an understanding of their challenges, so we've all got our challenges right here, right now, we all have different challenges going on. When you ask people what they're struggling with, and you take an interest in that, you're showing empathy, and people like that as well. When you make people feel of value, so when you ask people what they think. So today, the last question I'm going to ask you at the end of this presentation is, what do you think? Because I really do want to know what you think. When you focus on their strengths. So again, this is at odds with, you know, we're looking for things going wrong in health and safety. And the research shows that when you look at what's going right, when you focus on people's strengths, it builds self-esteem and it builds high performance. So there's research been done by Deloitte that shows a clear link between focusing on people's strengths, building high self-esteem, and high performance. Okay, so think about those 4 things. And then here's discovery number 2 that I made in those 10 years working in health and safety. And I'd like to explain it through a quote. So I don't know if you know Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. I'm hoping that Winnie the Pooh is international. Maybe give me a thumbs up if Winnie the Pooh is international. If anyone can find anything. Yes, I've got a thumbs up from Ahmed. Yeah, and one from Pauline. So I'm hoping that Winnie the Pooh is international. They're funny things, accidents. You're never having them until you're having them. For me, this completely sums up our challenge in health and safety, because we're just the people that are there when something goes wrong. And if you haven't had an accident, it can be hard to have that aha moment. So but what we need people to do is to have that aha moment before anything happens, which means a lot of work, a lot of engagement work, a lot of planning, a lot of conversations up front. So for me, it sums up the challenge that we have. And then discovery number 3, change is 50% awareness. There's a psychologist called Nathaniel Brandon who talks about this. And so the moment you start talking about something and people become aware of something, they're already starting to change. So a lot of what we do in health and safety is just talking about it. The more we talk about it, the more people get educated, the more the bar goes up, you know, the average awareness level, and the more likely people are going to start move towards safe behaviours. Discovery number 4. And this is from a guy called Noel Birch, and it was developed in the 1970s. This is a model for how people learn new things. And this is what we're trying to do with people adopting safety behaviours, adopting new skills for safety. So there are 4 levels, and I'm going to explain it through the example of driving to start with. And then we'll think about what it means for health and safety and adopting new behaviours. So I don't know if anyone's seen this model before from Noel Birch, and the hardest thing is trying to pronounce it in the right order. So it says that first of all, when we learn anything, we're unconsciously incompetent. So essentially, we don't know what we don't know. And then when we get a bit better, we learn a bit more, we then become consciously incompetent. So suddenly, when we start learning something, we become aware of how much we don't know. So it's like our eyes are suddenly open and there's a bit of a panic thinking, oh, wow. And this is what happened to me when I got into health and safety, when you first realize how much you don't know. And then conscious competence is where you start to know what you're doing, but you have to think about it. You know, you have to make a conscious effort. It's not happening automatically. And then when you get to be unconsciously competent, it's when you're doing it without thinking. And this is where we want to get to with health and safety. So if I tell you what it looks like for driving to start with, you probably all relate to this feeling, because I'm guessing most of us drive on this call. And then we'll look at it for health and safety. So when you learn to drive, think back to that time when you first learned to drive. You were unconsciously incompetent. You didn't know what you didn't know. So you probably got in the car for your first lesson and thought, how difficult can it be, this driving? Easy. And then the driving instructor suddenly started to show you, right, you've got to do this in this order. You've got to switch gears. You've got to look in the mirror. You've got to signal. And then there's the highway code. And then suddenly you're, whoa, I'm consciously incompetent now because I suddenly realize how much I don't know, and I'm never going to be able to do all of this at the same time. That's how I felt anyway. And then when you get to conscious competence, you know, when you pass your driving test, so I remember it was years ago, but I can remember now the first few weeks of driving, you're really having to think about things. So you're doing it, maybe had a few near misses, but I'm thinking about it. And then I've been driving for about 30 years now, and you're almost doing it on autopilot. You're not even thinking about what you're doing. You're switching gears, you're changing, you're doing all sorts of things at the same time. So your brain, you've got so good at something that your brain has automated the process. So for health and safety, everyone that you're interacting with is on their own journey, and they'll be at different levels here. There'll be people that don't know what they don't know. There'll be people that you've just started to educate, and they'll probably be super aware of all the things they don't know, maybe eager to learn. And then you've got people that are starting to get the hang of the new things they need to do safety, but you need to keep reminding them because they are, you know, they really have to think about it. So let's say you've developed some safety behaviors, some safety rules, they need a lot of reminding. And then suddenly it becomes unconsciously competent and it becomes just part of what we do. So it becomes a habit. So this model, I think, really helps us to sort of meet people where they are and understand that people are on a bit of their own journey towards learning and change with safety. So discovery number 5. So when I came into health and safety, and I said I got into it by accident just over 10 years ago now, my first impression was it was all about this thing on the left. So I've got a little sort of balance, a set of scales here. So, you know, I thought it's a lot about compliance, systems, rules and procedures, and all of that stuff is really important. And I thought, well, where do I fit in? You know, I'm not technically trained, and And now I've gone on to do my technical training. I did my NEBOSH certificate, and I've started to get more familiar with this stuff on the left. But 100% of everything I was doing was on the right-hand side. And what I discovered as well is, to be a health and safety professional, you have to be really good at the left, but there's not so much focus on the right. And yet in today's day and age, you have to be as good at the stuff on the right. So in order to get more compliance, and we really want everybody complying with the rules, we have to have engagement in that compliance. We have to have people to take ownership, because then if people take ownership, they're going to start looking out for the right procedures. They'll start simplifying. They'll start really driving the compliance better. And to do that, you need to get them to take ownership, which means you really have to understand people, which is why I'm focusing so much on people. You need to listen to them. You need to have the mindset of a coach. You need to think about not just talking to them, but inspiring them. A bit like Ahmed, you gave us that quote at the beginning about believing in yourself. So just little things that might inspire people. So in health and safety today, I believe we're not just in the compliance business, we're in the ownership business. And I would say we need to focus on that 50-50. But anyway, I'm sure you'll tell me what you think. And so when we look at these the words at the bottom here, so on the left is more about transactional leadership, and on the right, it's more about transformational leadership. So as health and safety leaders, I believe we need to be able to do both. There's times when we need to be transactional. We need to tell people what to do, what we expect, be really clear, particularly in situations of urgency, emergency, or crisis. And then there's times when we've got to make space to be more transformational, to ask people what they think, to inspire them, to have these great conversations. And then, so how do we influence? So I've sort of mentioned some of a bit of how I got into health and safety, the discoveries along the way, because I came into health and safety as a blank slate, really, just watching, observing, seeing what was happening. One thing I learned that you have to do in health and safety is often, even if you're in a small organization, what's outside that you're having to influence is complex and diverse. And when I did that, I noticed all the differences, but I realized that the only way I was going to bring everyone together for health and safety was to notice on what unites us rather than what divides us. So I had a lot of people say to me, but you don't understand, our part of the business is different. We do it a different way, and we have our unique way of working. We have our own language. And so in both organizations I worked with, I was responsible for creating a common language for health and safety, for bringing everyone together. So everyone, somebody said to me, I'm different, I'd say, I know you're different, and I'm listening to that. And what we need to do now is focus on what unites us, not what divides us, what brings us together. So what does bring us together? I mean, what brings us together today on this call? And this is what I think brings us together. So on this call today, in health and safety globally, in your organizations, outside of your organizations, we've got different cultures. We've got different national cultures, we've got different regional cultures, we've got different company cultures, we've got different languages. Often we're working across a lot of different languages, different job roles that we're relating to, people working in different job roles, different functions. Some will be more operational, some less operational, all with equal influence on health and safety. They just may not see it that way right now. We've got different industries, we've got different work activities, different departments, different divisions. And we've got people at different levels in the organization with different priorities. So you could think, well, that's a bit overwhelming, but what's the thing that brings us all together? And it's people. There are some things that are universal. I talked earlier on about what makes people feel good. I believe a lot of those things are universal. And then there's 4 things people in organizations have in common. I believe. Again, you can tell me what you think. So working in organizations, apart from obviously we've got, you know, bigger challenges in the world today. I don't know about you, but every time I see the news, I think, what more challenge can the world throw at us? But within organizations, we're all receiving too much information through too many channels. So we feel overloaded, overwhelmed, and we can't possibly take everything in. Right now, you're not taking everything in from this conversation because it's impossible. The brain, as powerful as it is, cannot take everything in. So our job, I think, as health and safety professionals is to keep things as simple as we can. And that's what I try to do, to try and take the complex and make it simple. They never have enough hours in the day. And this is why I'm making sure that I'm on time, because I know there is never enough hours in the day. We all have the same 24 hours, but it just feels like we never have enough. So if we never have enough hours in the day, then nobody wants an extra job. So if you go up to people and you make health and safety an extra job, it's less likely they're going to engage. But if you can show them how health and safety is part of the job they already do, how it streamlines into their processes, find some win-win there, the way that what you're offering can help them with something else in their business, the benefits, you know, the part of the business they work in. If you can find that win-win without creating any extra time, then they'll be very grateful to you. And every job has its own unique challenges. Even within health and safety, everyone on this call today will all have our own unique challenges. And it's about us understanding them and recognizing them. You know, you'll be liaising with senior managers, with operational people, people in functions. They've all got their own unique challenges and they're all doing the best they can. So within organizations, it can be quite adversarial. It can be quite them and us sometimes. And it's only because everybody has their own unique challenges. So we've got conflicting agendas, but recognizing everyone's doing the best they can is a good way to just understand what people have as challenges, share your own challenges, and hopefully find somewhere in the middle. They feel like nobody is listening to them, or is that just me? Do you ever feel like nobody's listening to you? You're talking and nobody is listening to you. But today, I have a funny feeling you might be listening to me. But who knows, we'll find out at the end. You know, it's a common feeling that, you know, you're not being listened to. And I think it's just because there's so much noise in the world. In fact, I just saw on LinkedIn that Daniel Kahneman has just written a book called Noise. I've not picked it up yet, but I wonder if it's just about the noise that we're facing. So if you can relate to any of this, then I think the people that you're trying to influence will be up against the same challenges. So we have the build, buzz, bake formula. Very simple, 3 steps. There is detail behind it, but the idea is trying to keep health and safety simple. And also, so focus on people, which is the thing that brings people together. And also, I guess it's a long-term approach, because when people have a lot going on, they don't thank you for just throwing something on them last minute. But if you can plan it out in the long term, you can show the steps and the milestones. You can show this is where we are now. This is where we want to be. This won't be something overnight. It's going to take 5 years to do it. And this is where we need your help. They're more likely to buy in than you just giving them something last minute. So, as an overview, build, buzz, bake. So build, as its name suggests, is all about, let's say we want to create an approach to health and safety that is really long-term, makes a difference, keeps people safe. The first thing we need to do is build the foundations, like a house, really. So it's like, you know, in engineering, we're designing safety in. We really design, what do we need to do up front to make sure that before we even say a word about what we're doing, we have things designed in. How are we going to make it part of the organization? Who do we need to form partnerships with, for example? What kind of behaviors are we looking for? What does good look like? And then the buzz is all about communication, but essentially, how do we communicate in a way that really inspires people? And then bake, how do we make sure that it becomes self-sustaining? So in the long term, people are doing it without you even having to push it. So I'd say generally, health and safety tends to be full of initiatives, quite short term. So people are doing the buzz in the middle without really looking at the build and the bake. I could be wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff going on, but I think the tendency is to just go for the buzz and not go for the build and the bake. So really, build, buzz, bake is about making it really strategic, long term. Really, what things can you design in up front so that it really sticks? Okay, so build. So this is 5 steps within the build. As I said, it's detailed in the book. So the book has 15 chapters, 3 sections. Each section has 5 parts. So dream is all about dreaming what your company will look like. So when everyone is safe, you know, what is, for example, Qatar 2022 that you're all thinking about? What does good look like for health and safety, you know, and not just a vision. So number 2 is the vision, but not just what is your vision for it, but what does good look like? What does everyone have to be doing? What will everyone be saying? You know, what are the little things that you're going to notice that are going to make the difference? Number 3 is commitment, and it's really about building a business case for management, because we know that health and safety is the right thing to do from a moral perspective. But again, people will be at their different levels of that, you know, that model of learning, unconscious competence, etc. People will be at different levels there. So and they've also got their own challenges and their own agenda. So we really need to build a business case. And then number 4, sponsorship. So you really need to have people in different roles in the organization ready to back you up. So this is your backup, because we know that every day there is a conflict, a potential conflict between production, schedule, cost, and safety. So if we can prepare to have that backup, then when somebody makes a stand for safety and says, no, we can't carry on like this, we need to stop now, you know, you've got somebody in the right role that's ready to back you up. And then number 5 is behaviors, which is all about defining the safe behaviors that you want. And then buzz. So this is when you start to launch your program, and it depends on the size of your organization and who you're trying to influence. But so number 6 there is about building alliances. So not just working as health and safety in a silo, but you formed alliances with HR, for example, the training department, learning and development, communications, and also with operations. You know, you've piloted some content, so you've strategically built alliances with people across your organization. So you're not the only people spreading the message, and everyone else is taking ownership as well. And then number 7, alignment. So how do you get everybody's thinking aligned and get the whole company aligned on a simple set of steps that you want to achieve? Focus. So that's, what focus do you need if you want to inspire people? What mindset do you need? Number 9, what's the message you need to be communicating? How do you make it inspirational for people? Confidence. How do you create, not only giving people the skills to speak up for a speak up culture, giving them the confidence, but also creating psychological safety that people feel able to speak up. And then bake. So number 11 is inspiration. So how do you get people to follow you? So you're going to have to not just deliver the message yourself, but train other people to do it. So give them the skills, not just to transmit a message, but an inspirational one as well. And then how do you keep it going? Momentum. What mechanisms do you put in place? How do you create space for these conversations to keep going? Impact. How do you measure the difference you're making? Because if this is a long-term thing, you're probably going to have to be constantly proving quick wins to management, and also preparing them, managing expectations, and letting them know what you can directly measure from the work you're doing. So we're talking leading versus lagging indicators here. And then stamina. So how do you really keep things going? What happens when you've done all your buzzing and then people say, well, I want something new now. How are you going to keep renewing the message? And then finally, leverage. How do you make sure that health and safety becomes the Trojan horse for change in everything else you do, to the extent that people in other departments come to you and say, how do you do that? Because this is having a positive effect on what we're doing as well. So that is Build, Buzz, Bake. And this is what you might expect to see. These are the kind of things that I've seen in the 2 organizations that I worked with. So safe and healthy behaviors, and you'll see them because you've defined them, you've made it really clear what you're looking for. And so once you've set the bar there, that's what you'll start to see. You'll start to see behaviors embedded in business processes because you've set it up that way, you've built it that way. A speak up culture for health and safety, because you're very much inspiring people to speak out, giving them the confidence to speak out. Also, this is the opportunity to integrate well-being as well, because you're making health and safety relevant to people in offices. You're making health and safety relevant to all parts of the business, and everything in the Build, Buzz, Bake formula also applies to well-being. It's the same principles. An engaged workforce, because you've taken a people-focused approach. People feel valued, they feel supported, they feel engaged. And you've also given them leadership skills, because you're showing them what inspires and what works, and they will take their lead from you. And so the problem solving for safety will start to spill over into other areas, and you have the culture driving performance. So there's some really interesting research back in 2002 by Barling et al. And they show that when you focus on safety awareness and transformational leadership, it improves safety culture, which then eventually leads to performance. So when you speak to management, the first thing they'll be looking for is for you to impact the trend in incidents. They want you to impact the lagging indicators. But you may impact the lagging indicators, but it will probably take years to do so. In one of the organizations I worked, we started to see that after about 8 years, and we could see a trend. But really, you need to explain to management that the things you're going to impact with this kind of approach is the leading indicators. You know, all the things around people and motivation, you know, people being involved, engaged, showing up for stuff, communicating, having great quality conversations. And when all of that is happening, there'll be a time, you know, a lag for that to happen, but that will eventually impact performance, but not directly. So these are the kind of things that you'll see directly. So I'm going to take a breath now. I've given you quite a lot today, and this is the time when I say, what do you think? Feel free to ask me any questions you like. Over to you, Venkat. Are there any questions for me or Ahmed?
Venkat.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Karen, for that.
You're welcome.
I do have a few questions. You know, you rightly pointed out that everyone has their own unique challenges. Yeah. So how a single model or a framework fits for all? What do you suggest? It has to be customized, right?
Yeah, so the single model framework, do you mean the Build, Buzz, Bake?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me give you an example, a practical example that I think will help explain the challenges. So in the second organization where I designed and delivered a program for them, it was probably the most diverse organization I've ever worked in, 80,000 people, 5 different divisions operating in many parts of the world. And I was challenged with coming up with a single program to bring everybody together. And so I went through all the health and safety incidents that they were having, looked at what was common in terms of behaviors that we might need to keep people safe. So I came up with a set of behaviors. So I came up with a long list. So I knew in my mind, so people can't remember any more than 7 things. And even then people were struggling with 7 things. So I wanted to come up with 7 behaviors. So I started with a list of about 20 or 30, and then I went backwards and forwards for about 2 months with the key health and safety people in each of the divisions. Essentially discussing the language that I was using until we came up with the language that was common. So we ended up with 7 behaviors that everyone was happy with. And at the same time, we drew up a matrix which showed that for each of the, so imagine on the left-hand side, we had each of the 7 behaviors. And then on the right-hand side, we had each of the different divisions. In the boxes of the matrix, we showed an example of each behavior, how it might manifest in each division. So we had, it's a bit like Russian dolls, really, you know, where you just sort of take them off. So the top layer, really, what is common is the 7 behaviors, but then you have to be prepared to show, how does this behavior manifest itself? What does it look like in the different parts of the business? And then you can show that you've listened to the differences, but you've also managed to bring them into a common framework. So hopefully that example makes a bit of sense, Venkat.
Thank you, Karen, for that. I do enjoyed some of the important points that you have spoke about, like, you know, when we talk about transformation in the organization in terms of health and safety, you said, you know, focus on what unites you rather than what divides you. Most of the time, we just look at the negative part of the organization. We look at, you know, what unites. Every organization has its own strength. You know, you rightly point out. I really, you know, like that way. And I do have another question. Like, I have 2 questions which are very similar. When an organization is on loss making, actually, how best we can motivate and transform the leaders towards health and safety? I know it's very challenging.
Yeah, shall I answer that one straight away? So it's really interesting because many organizations are struggling right now, and both organizations that I worked in went through a period of change and restructuring. In fact, both went through a merger, and so the focus was very much on cost. So whereas at the beginning, you know, I started out with the build, buzz, bake formula, and so at the building stage, you know, everyone, well, you know, most people were pretty engaged, but then when it came to the rollout, everyone was facing different challenges, and there were definitely cost pressures. And so that's when it becomes even more important, I think, to remember some of the key points I've mentioned, like finding a win-win, you know, looking for what their challenge is, making sure that you can build, I guess, build bridges, partnerships, help them with what they're doing. And I guess when push comes to shove, you have to point out, really, you know, there's a saying, you know, or people might say, you know, how much is this going to cost? Who's going to pay for this? You know, but then there's the cost of loss of life and what could go wrong. So it's a trade-off, really. But I think it becomes even more important to collaborate when everybody is under pressure. But I just, you know, I've kept pushing through. I've tried to keep my message simple. I've tried to really understand other people, and that has got me through even when organizations are loss making, because everybody does realize the benefits of health and safety. I think you just have to become even better at selling it. You know, when an organization is focused on cost, you need to sell. And I think in health and safety, we are in the business of selling. We're selling ideas. We have to sell the benefits. You know, I even remember producing a presentation which sold the benefits of health and safety. So before I could get any parts of the business on board, I gave everyone this presentation on, you know, which really really piled up all the benefits. This is what it's going to give the business, because there are a lot of benefits which can build I guess, value in the long term, build reputation. You know, reputation is really important. You know, I'm thinking, you know, and you can build goodwill on the balance sheet. So it's about encouraging them to look in the future and what not, you know, what the big picture might be, not what you can save, but what value you might bring.
Yeah, I like that perspective, you know, connecting the health and safety to the long-term vision and how futuristic, you know, that will help, you know, when a business is doing, you know, loss, we can, you know, foresee the things, you know, in future. If you're focusing on health and safety right now, definitely that's going to add value to the business.
Yeah, if someone says
Yeah.
cost, just say, let's not talk cost, let's talk value.
Yep, that's true, that's true. Well, there are a few more questions are coming in. What is the best positive approach while dealing lower level of workers instead of being a policeman? Hmm,
Yeah, I think just
that's
ask
good.
them what they think, and create the right environment. I remember walking out on some construction sites in the Middle East, and
Yeah.
just following behind. I guess I was with some other people, and I just followed behind, and I just sort of went up to some people, and I tried to think what was a really good question I could ask. And the question I asked was, if you could change one thing on this site, what would it be? And I could see sort of, you know, the eyes opening and thinking, wow, what thing would I change? Because it's quite a difficult question anyway. And they didn't answer me straight away, but I just think go out and ask them some questions that no one else would ever ask them. Because, you know, if you just, I guess it's easy just to tell people what to do, but then when you're not there, they don't necessarily understand. So it's that balance again between that transactional and transformational. I think just, you know, there's times when you need to tell people what to do, and there's also great opportunities to just ask people some really good questions.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Also, you spoke about the culture driving performance. Yeah. How do we measure that? Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, so the best way, so culture is a bit intangible. I think of it, it's a bit like a jelly. It sort of moves around and you can never quite get hold of it. So I think of it being like a jelly on a plate, but really a culture is about how people feel, is about people's perceptions. So it's about going out and interviewing people and asking how they feel about the priority of health and safety. So in the book, I talk a bit about this. I think it's chapter 13, and how you would measure culture. So there's things that influence people to behave safely. They're influenced by how the perceived importance to the organization. So when senior managers are talking about it a lot, they think, wow, they're taking this seriously. So you do a sort of measure of how important they feel it is to the organization, and you can boost that through leadership talking about it. You also want to know, because their biggest influence is their line manager, so you want to know the priority that your line manager places on it. And there's a really good question you can ask in that survey, which is, if your line manager were to fail in one of the following things, which would they prefer to fail in? And you put safety next to lots of other things like budget and cost, and you can sort of find out the priority. So you're looking at it from the employee perspective and how they feel the priority placed on safety by their line managers and by senior leadership. So perceptions can measure cultural shift, which is really interesting. And then you can measure other things like, you know, quality and quantity of conversations. So obviously it's easy to measure the numbers. You know, you can measure number of interventions, but then you might want to look at quality as well. So I try and choose lagging indicators that, you know, look at the numbers, but also the quality of those numbers.
That's true. You know, we need to focus on the quality rather than the quantity. And that's tempting me to read the People Power book.
Chapter 13.
Thank you. Yeah, chapter 13. Thank you. And we do have some questions like, health and safety is just a supporting role to operations who run the business. without the support of the operations, health and safety cannot progress. How can we influence our HSE initiatives? Probably you touched upon that. You can just highlight more on that particular topic. How can we influence the leaders?
Yeah,
Business
so the
leaders.
first thing I would do, so it's very, I'm going to make it sound really simple, and I know it's not simple, but just sit down with operations, what your biggest challenge is, and then go away and have a think about how is what you're offering going to help them solve their challenges, because there will be a win-win there, and it's about opening their eyes to the win-win. And also sometimes you've got to be a bit flexible with operations as well. Just get out there and talk to them and find out, test your material on them, get them involved really early on so that they feel like they're a part of it, and then they will take it with them, because operations know how important safety is. They just don't want an extra job, and they don't want it to get in the way in their job. So if you can make it part of what they do, that will be a lot easier, and in a way that helps them with their challenges.
Okay, thank you, Karen. One of the slides that you have shown us, what unites us is we are all people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be more empathetic to get the things done, and be empathetic towards others. Again, we are all common as people, but we all come from the different background, cultural background.
Yeah.
How we can manage that plays a very, very vital role in terms of bringing transformation into the health and safety.
Yeah, now this is a huge topic. We could talk all day on this, and I don't pretend to be the expert, but I would say that I am constantly scanning for differences. So if I can see differences, and I try to work with them. I know that in the Middle East, for example, you probably have the biggest diversity of any workforce. So yeah, it's just constantly just trying to notice where things are different and how you can help people to engage in their own way, I think. I'll give you an example. So when we're teaching people to intervene, I know that, for example, UK and US were quite individualist cultures. So we sort of might speak up directly. In other parts of the world, in other cultures, they're more collectivist, where people operate as a group and a community. So it's looking at, if we want to send a message around intervening and stopping the job, making sure we can adapt that message to suit individual ways of doing things. So we're not sort of forcing one cultural approach on another. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So right, it's a very big topic.
Yeah, it is. I'm very passionate about it, but yeah, I don't think it's possible to ever be an expert in it because it's just too big.
Probably we can think about having a panel discussion on that topic alone.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Similarly, the another one that you have presented, like the moving individuals from the unconscious incompetence to the unconscious competency. Yeah, it's a huge task. It's not it looks simple 4 steps, but it's not uneasy. Like recently I was attending one of the sessions where it was said that they've seen people who are climbing over the trees without any safety precautions. Is in the Middle East, this part of the region, they have come here working in the construction field. If you ask him when they are climbing over the height, they need to follow the protocols. Probably they're never done in the past. They were in terms of unconscious incompetence, but now we need to shift them towards the 4th stage. Yeah. This particular slide itself talks about everything.
Yeah.
Okay, how you can influence every individual towards that unconscious competency stage. If we can break down.
Yeah, I think it's, it starts with awareness, really, recognizing where they are. I think the reason I showed that model is because I think it's fascinating to look at where people are, because it's about opening their mind to what they don't know. A lot of times people aren't following the rules because they're just not aware of what the dangers are, or maybe there's overriding pressures. But the more you can build the awareness and watch them go through that stage, the more successful you'll be. So I think you know, the answer is not to just go straight to that final stage. You need to, you know, recognize that maybe they've not, you know, had the initial awareness at the beginning. So adapt your materials so that you are communicating with them at the stage they are at.
Yeah. To having a breakthrough at the first stage itself, you know, we need a lot of efforts.
Yeah, and interestingly, what you might find is that, so I've done some, you know, when you first go into an organization and you sort of survey them on their perceptions about health and safety, and then you do one session with them, they might completely change their perceptions because suddenly their eyes are open to more levels of risk, and then they might judge themselves as knowing less about health and safety. And then, you know, they've gone into that sort of conscious incompetence when they're, you know, in sort of panic that they don't know what's out there. And I remember going through that myself.
Thank you very much, Karen, for that wonderful knowledge sharing session. I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm sure all the audience were, you know, enjoying the feedback. What we are receiving is quite encouraging. I do have one more question now. Asian workers grown up in the environmental where no safety in place, so my 80% of life they spend without safety. While coming Gulf countries, they see safety first time. They don't accept by heart unless a rule at workplace. Very hard to change the mind. True, you know, moving from that, having a breakthrough at the first step itself a huge task. It requires a lot of efforts to create awareness, making them to realize it is how important it is for them. Well, thank you very much, Karan, for that wonderful session. I truly appreciate your time and all. Now, I would like to remind you on the competition.
Competition, yeah.
You've left me 3 minutes for the competition. Brilliant. I was just thinking, must remember the competition. So for anyone that likes a good competition, I was thinking, what can I offer? So I'm going to ask you, I don't know how many of you have read the book or not. I've given you a bit of an overview today. So even if you haven't read it, I think you'll have an overview of what it's about and where my thinking lies. So I'm going to ask you if you've got a few minutes in the next 24 hours. So I'm going to give you 24 hours to review either People Power the book or this session. I'm going to leave it open. You can either write something that you learned about this session and you know, say what you liked about it, or write something that you liked about the book, either on Amazon. So if you bought the book or you've got an Amazon account, you can go onto Amazon and write a quick review of the book, or you can write something about the book or this session. Tag me in it if you can. So I'm Karen J. Hewitt. That's how you'll find me, with a J, or tag Ahmed, and then I'll probably find it. If you can tag me so I can see it. So the next 24 hours, I'm going to be scanning my Amazon account for the reviews on People Power. I'll be scanning LinkedIn just to see what you've written. So just remember I said, when you focus on people's strengths, it makes them feel good. So just tell me what you liked. And it doesn't have to be a lot of words. And then, so in the next 24 hours, I'm going to have a look and pick out what I think is the best review of either the book or this session by 6:30 p.m. Qatar time. So you've got, actually got 23 hours now, haven't you? I've just taken an hour off.
Yeah.
So yeah, but 23 hours is a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll win, ta-da, a free People Power book. So I will post it from the UK to Qatar, make sure it gets there. I'll sign it, write a personal message if you like, and also offer you a 1-hour coaching session on the Build, Buzz, Bake formula. So, you know, I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I do know this formula works. So if you get an hour to ask me whatever you like, to look at what you're doing, how it fits with Build, Buzz, Bake, and hopefully I can give you some ideas to take it forward. So yeah, so a win-win, I think, if you can write some good stuff. And the reason for the book for me is about saving lives. I don't make a lot of money from the book. I wrote it really the same reason we're all on the call today. We all want to keep people safe and save lives. I want the message out there. The more people that write stuff about the book, about, you know, this session, the more of a buzz we create and the more chance we've got of people getting the message. So you help me and I will help you. So, and we can have some fun with it as well. So thank you so much for listening today. I really hope it was useful. And thank you very much to Ahmed for inviting me and to Venkat for the amazing questions. Really made me think.
It's a pleasure to have you. May I request all the audience to switch on your camera? We can take a group picture and we will make Karen happy. How you are feeling, you can just express it.
And smile.
Karen, could you please stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great to see all the faces.
Yeah.
That's people power.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
All our health and safety people.
Looking good.
Yeah.
Can I do
If
it?
you want to be in the frame, please switch on your camera and keep smiling. Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ahmed. You want to say any concluding remarks?
I think I just want to say thank you, Karim. It was really a very informative, insightful session, and we have learned a lot from the session. And we really appreciate, you know, your time and sharing of your experience as well. So thank you so much, and I believe that you deserve a big hand as well.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to give one back for you guys.
Yeah,
this is me giving it right back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And looking forward to have you again, maybe in a panel discussion as mentioned by Venkat. So, and thank you all for joining us this evening. I think we have nearly had around 90 people in the session, so which is very good. We were expecting more, but to be honest with you, we have a football match today, and lots of those people are there in that football match. So that's why we didn't reach the 100. But anyway, we have had a very good attendance, and thank you all for joining us. I'm looking forward to see you again in our next session. Thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Karen.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.